Today we have to deal with water and minerals and energy balance. Now that sounds a little dissimilar, but there's more to it than you might imagine. I want to tell you a sad story. It's probably a story that you've heard before anyway. Sister or brother Smith, elderly person in good health, goes out on a rainy or snowy day and is trying to get into the car, and their foot slips and they fall and break their hip. And as a result of breaking their hip, they go into a hospital and they have a very poor hospital course and they die. And it all seems so sad because if they had just hadn't slipped on that day. And actually, if you knew the truth is that they actually had really bad osteoporosis. Their bones were thin. And the head of their femur probably was so fragile that when they did anything just a little unusual, that the head of the femur broke off. So they slipped and fell because their hip broke, not their hip broke as a result of their fall. And the reason they have such a bad hospital course was that there were just fragments of bone pieces and there wasn't much for the physician to work with. Now, you can look and see pictures of this osteoporosis. Page 318 has a micrograph of how bad osteoporosis is. And your generation is going to suffer it much more than my generation is. See, for my generation, we really drank a lot of milk. And there wasn't any television, there weren't video games, and they chased us outside, so we got a lot of exercise running around like wild Indians in the neighborhood. Your generation does not drink milk. You've ended up drinking cola instead. Doesn't have any calcium, doesn't have any vitamin D. And as a consequence, you don't have calcium, you don't have vitamin D, and you haven't had exercise. And those are three things. So there's three things you need, and you need them right now, because right now in your 20s, you're going to prevent yourself from becoming the sad tale of Sister or Brother Smith. Those three things are calcium, their vitamin D, and their exercise. All three of them are necessary for you being able to have maximum bone density. You have one chance to do this in your lifetime, and it's when you're in your 20s. And if you don't believe that, you can just take a look at the maximum bone density as pictured on page 290 in your textbook. Let's start with this. Calcium. Some of you might not like milk, but I mean, really, milk is the way to go. Milk and cheese and leafy green vegetables will provide you with the kind of calcium intake you need. Well, what if I don't like it? Well, see, there's these cheap antacid tablets from Kroger's. They have half a gram of calcium, a half a daily dose. Oh, several fruit flavors. Look at that, whole gram, whole daily dose. It's easy, tastes good. So it doesn't matter. You can be a vegetarian and you can get your calcium this way. Now, how about vitamin D? Well, you're going to have to buy some cheap multivitamin if you don't have an adequate source of vitamin D. Well, or you're going to go out in the sunlight. But most of you are not going to go out in the sunlight. Vitamin D is absolutely necessary for the absorption of calcium from our gastrointestinal tract. So you can have the calcium without vitamin D, you're not going to absorb it. Now you might notice that some kinds of orange juice have calcium added. Orange juice is always advertised that it's a sunshine vitamin, has vitamin D added to it. So you can find your calcium and vitamin D in some kinds of orange juice, but not all kinds of orange juice. Exercise. What difference does exercise make? I mean, bone is bone, isn't it? No, not true. You see, with exercise, with impact, what you have is you have more calcium and phosphorus wanting to be deposited in bone. Bone is real, live, dynamic substance. So when you exercise, you force a maximum bone density to be deposited. Well, what if you are Sister or Brother Smith now, and you're elderly? Is there any hope for you? I mean, from age 20, your bone density decreases about 1% per year, and you can see that on the graph in your textbook. Yeah, when senior citizens decide to get active and they provide themselves with calcium and vitamin D, they can stabilize and they can increase their bone density. They've been inactive. They need this activity. So it really does help. Okay. There's other things within this chapter on water and minerals. People do things like they think that, well, I just don't have energy. Maybe I have iron poor tired blood. So it's the quick way is to go to a health food store, try and find something like ginseng or ginkgo biloba or iron tablets to try and help me out, make me have more energy. That's our answer. And actually, the funny thing is, you can actually look, your text now names exercise deficiency syndrome, because people that don't have regular physical exercise end up being tired because they don't have regular physical exercise. So if you turn it around and you get some kind of regular physical exercise, you'll discover that your energy level will improve. Your body is going to balance that out. Now let's look at water quality. What about, Fiji water or artesian spring pure water? Well, most of the time, Fiji water is not brought from the island of Fiji, 12,000 miles to be sold in the United States. It'd be prohibitively expensive to do that. Fiji water comes from the tap of whatever company happens to be bottling it locally. As a matter of fact, Consumer Reports has done intense reviews of water quality. And to do this, they have very stringent standards. They go into some of the worst tenements in Harlem, in inner cities on the East Coast, and in Los Angeles and the Watts area. And they clean off the taps in these rundown tenements, and they turn on the tap and get a sample of water. And what they discover is the water quality in the worst places, in the worst cities of the United States, is as good as, or not better, than the water quality out of the best bottled water. One of the substances of BPA in bottled water is a plasticizer, and there are many indications that BPA, even though it's in tiny quantities, it still is a carcinogen, and it may be causing some difficulties. Plastic water bottles are causing huge problems environmentally. Huge problems. There are masses of plastic circulating in 5 immense pools. I mean, pools the size of Texas. 2 in the Pacific, 2 in the Atlantic, 1 in the Indian Ocean. Millions of tons of plastic which has been released into the ocean, circulating in ocean currents. You can look at the Atlantic Gyre or the Pacific Gyre if you want to become acquainted with this problem.